It's the Full Court Press with Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker.
Welcome back to the to the show that we're doing right now.
Following the local teams, breaking down the biggest games with in-depth analysis and team interview. Join the show by calling into 435-752-1069 or text 435-339-0321. It's the Full Court Press.
Rose, answer, yes! Caught! Touchdown! They did it!
Welcome on in to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here alongside Eric Frandsen on a Tuesday, a preview Tuesday as I once called them. Usually we're starting our preview of the next Utah State football opponent. We'll get into that today along with some other topics. I know Eric's got to sneak down to football practice a little later, but
yes,
I'll have my...
I like to sneak.
Yes.
Sneak in.
We'll have football power rankings. Also, a look at the best seasons in Utah State basketball history as individual seasons, because there were some analytics that came out about that, featuring some of the best seasons for everyone in the last, I think, 15, 16 years. It was since the 2009-2010 season. And there's a former Aggie that appears in the top 30 best individual seasons over those last 15, 16 years. Barely snuck in the timeline. It was a 2009-2010 season. There's your hint. But we'll go over that along with some other of the greatest seasons in Aggie men's basketball history. Also note on the NBA beginning tonight, NBA season tip-off. Not featuring the Jazz, though.
Yeah, no, there's just a few teams involved tonight. Then for by and large, everybody else will get started tomorrow. But officially underway. And it's the start of a new 11-year media rights package. So games are going to be on a variety of different places. So it might be a little bit more challenging to figure out the matchups you want to watch, where to find them.
I saw, I'm suddenly forgetting if I got the numbers backwards. It was either it would cost $260 or $620 to watch every single NBA game, which that's a pretty big difference now that I'm going to have to double check the numbers on that.
Pretty big variance.
But it was a lot of money to watch. It's probably more than the 600 because
that's if you signed up for all the different.
That's basically if you signed up for every single thing to watch every single game, which realistically nobody is doing. But there are some people that are going to watch a lot of games, and that's not easy. That's not easy to do. So we'll get into that later. We'll also have the stat that blow our mind and our Full Court Press Players of the Week. Now, if you want to join the show via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line, feel free to text 435-339-0321. That's 435-339-0321. Now, let's jump into our show opening topic, Eric, and that is the big game this Saturday at New Mexico. It's the Lobos Super Bowl, at least for their fans. They are absolutely intent. Like the second Monday hit, it was like, all right, it is hate week, and it is hate week times 10.
It's on.
New Mexico are not fans of Bronco Mendenhall after he showed them a decent amount of hope thanks to that 5-7 season, which is better than they had done since like 2016. And then he left them all high and dry. Told them he wasn't leaving. He was going to stay. Nobody had contacted him to interview him or whatever. And then days later, he's wearing a Utah State polo, standing in front of a Utah State crowd, talking about how much he wanted to be the Aggies head coach.
Yeah, and it's we've talked about this. It's hard. Coaches are famous for being the worst liars out there and the biggest liars out there. But it's a difficult position for a lot of these guys to be in. You're trying to coach one team. You're working with one group. You're recruiting to one institution, but there's an opportunity to go somewhere else and to maybe even improve your situation, your family's situation, improve your job It's really hard to be able to balance those two things that are happening simultaneously. So famously, coaches will just take the easy route and lie and just say, no, want to be here forever. I love it here. Everything's good and dandy, nothing to see here. While as soon as the microphone leaves their face, they're on the phone with their agent or, trying to figure out house plans, for their new destination. So it's tough. I get it. And it's very rare to see coaches handle it well. But for those in Albuquerque, yeah, they felt really stung. Like Bronco spent 4 years as a defensive coordinator, really important, formative years for him. And those were years that New Mexico was successful. And he came back as a head coach. It was a program that had been in the dumps for a long time, started to turn things around, improve the football culture, got them knocking on the door, bowl eligibility, and then he turns his back. And it's not just him that leaves, like the whole coaching staff leaves, and a good number of players also leave. So, yeah, there's a feeling of being stung by those in Albuquerque about Bronco Mendenhall and a lot of other people's decisions. Not just him, but quite a few people. And I'll find the number, but there's a good number of players and coaches, support staff, trainers who were in New Mexico last year but are in Logan this year.
Yeah, and I think it's not just that Coach Mendenhall left. It's also the fact that it was 1 year. And it's also to a conference rival. I think that's what makes it even trickier and even more, I don't know if I'm finding the right words, but it feels like toxic and bitter. Because, and you kind of saw the same thing with Nevada losing Jay Norvell to Colorado State, who are probably loving, watching him get fired over at Colorado State. Because, losing a coach to a higher program that's just going to pay him more and have way more resources, you can kind of understand that. But Utah State being the team that is able to pay more money, $800,000 raise, offer more resources. I know New Mexico likes to talk about how they have more potential as a program, but Utah State's actually showing that potential and investing money in it. So they're giving more resources to football. That's kind of what makes it sting a little bit more, is that more prestigious, more high-paying, more invested program is within your own conference, and a coach left you for that.
Yeah, it's not like moving up into a P4 or somewhere that looks like
that's just cost of doing business in the G5 is losing your good coach to a higher up team.
Right, and there would be a lot of reasons you could say, that was just a lateral move. I mean, they're in the same conference. Facilities really aren't that much different. But Utah State was on a trajectory to go to the Pac-12. New Mexico wasn't. Utah State also shelled out more money. So, yeah, it's like, oh my gosh, that's really frustrating. And and New Mexico, like they were turning things around. They came to Logan. They beat the Aggies. Bronco was emotional after the game. He was crying on the post-game interview with the TV broadcast, just explaining how proud he was of his team and how they're improving and overcoming. And then shortly after that, he turns his back on him. So I understand. Like, I get the emotion in Albuquerque. Believe me, I do. And that's what makes me worried about this game. I've always been worried about this game. Nothing has changed between how I felt about this game on the schedule when it was released in wherever, when we knew about this game on the schedule, when it would happen, when it was in the summer, when we talked to the coach, when we met both Coach Eck and both Bronco Mendenhall in Las Vegas, and when the games have been started to be played, watching both teams' trajectories, nothing has changed for me to be worried about this game. Like, there might have been a part where I thought, okay, New Mexico may not be able to get it with Coach Eck just yet. Maybe Utah State improves under Coach Mendenhall, and this is a layup game. Nope, I don't think that at all. I think this is going to be a tightly contested game. New Mexico looks better. They look dynamic. They're not perfect, but Utah State has its flaws. They're not perfect. I still believe Utah State can win this game. But I have a lot of worries about this matchup, Jason. I think it means a lot more to New Mexico than it does to Utah State, and that's where, for me, there's a lot of concern.
Yeah, and the question is, like, how much do the players have that same level of care? Because the fans, they're fired up. They absolutely want this game more than life itself. For Utah State, it's like, you want to beat New Mexico. You don't want to give your conference rival the satisfaction of getting that revenge game. There's
or
also
having beat you 2 years in a row.
Yeah, beat you 2 years in a row. There's also the motivation for Utah State to prove that, hey, we're going to the Pac-12. We're supposed to be the better program. Don't be losing to the teams that are going to get left behind. So you've got that level of motivation, at least from the fans, but like, how much are the players going to care? You do have a lot of former New Mexico players. Like, are they going to be motivated to beat their former team? But, I mean, they're the ones who chose to leave New Mexico. It's not like they had their backs turned on them. So, yeah, I don't think Utah State's going to have the same emotions toward the game. I'm not sure how many of the New Mexico players are going to feel that way because they had a lot of turnover.
A lot.
I mean, a bunch of them came to Utah State. A bunch of them went elsewhere. Heck, one of them went to Hawaii. Utah State's already played a former New Mexico player. A lot of the incoming guys are, some of them are former FCS guys. Some of them, players at Jason Eck's previous stops. So, yeah, it's interesting to see if the players catch on to this same rivalry aspect that the fans certainly have. Because if New Mexico does latch on to that, and I mean, they're interacting with all the fans, so some of that will kind of seep over, be like, this is, what you're playing for. This is what it means to be New Mexico, is fight and win this game. That's what mattered this year. So that'll be an interesting thing to keep an eye on.
There are 2 games on New Mexico's schedule that stand out above all others on their schedule. One has already happened, and that was them hosting New Mexico State. It's a big in-state rivalry game. They had a huge home crowd. It was, there's a lot of politics and regional pride and a lot of things on the line with that one. Okay, makes sense. The only other game that's like really is high on the radar for anybody else there in Albuquerque is this one. So their game against New Mexico State, they won 38-20. Great big crowd. But this one is the next big one on the schedule. And there may be arguments over which one is more important to the fan base, to beat Utah State or to beat New Mexico State.
Yeah, do you want to beat Bronco Mendenhall, the guy who betrayed the program, or do you want to beat the bitter in-state rival? I think that probably most would say New Mexico State, but it goes to show just how much hatred there is for Bronco Mendenhall, that it is kind of a question of like, which one would you rather have if you only picked one?
Right.
Obviously they want both, but like, if you only pick one, which one would you take?
Right, because there's outside of what happened in December, there really isn't a history of bad blood or whatever between Utah State and New Mexico.
Yeah, it's more a basketball rivalry, if anything.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's been some crazy games between the two teams here and there, but lately Utah State's had the Lobos number, and it really hasn't been much of a series. This year it has all the markings of being something very different. Yeah,
so I think it'll be a very interesting game, and I feel like we're getting probably the most ideal version of this matchup. It should be a closely contested game, and part of that is because both of these teams are, for the most part, hitting most of the ideal scenarios for this first season. I mean, ideal in a perfect world scenario is both these teams are undefeated, but that was never really going to happen. These are two teams that were projected to be in the middle or even toward the bottom of the conference. Heck, wasn't New Mexico like in the bottom 3 in the preseason poll or something?
Yes. They were the bottom 3.
Yeah.
So a lot of people projected or the early predictions before the results came out were that New Mexico was going to come in dead last. And that's why Coach Eck and his players, they were all dressed up in suits when they came to media day, because they were expected to be dead last. And like, if we're going to be dead last, everybody thinks we're going to be dead last, at least we can look nice and look professional and try to set a different tone. Now, they didn't end up being last, but they were very close. Yeah, but the thing is, they've gone out and they are, technically they're still pretty low in the standings because they've taken 2 losses in conference play, but they're 4-3. They got wins over New Mexico State, got a win over UCLA. They still beat Idaho State, and the loss to Michigan
I can't remember if Michigan is still ranked, but they were ranked 14th at the time. They only lose by 17. Michigan ranked 25th as I checked that. So 14th at the time, 25th now. So still a ranked loss then and now. So they do have the 2 losses to San Jose and Boise, which kind of, spoils a bit of that 3-1 start. But this is a team that still has a pretty darn good chance of bowl eligibility. They got Utah State, Colorado State, and Air Force as probably the 3 winnable games. I mean, you have at UNLV and home against San Diego State. Those are be tough matchups, but still 3 very winnable games left on the schedule, and you need to win 2 of those.
Yeah, and I was listening to some of their press availability earlier today, and I apologize we don't have all of that available for this show today. We'll have more of it tomorrow. But one of the things about this game is they're going to be wearing turquoise jerseys for football for the first time since like the early 70s. And we see them all the time in basketball, but we've never seen them for football. So they're super hyped about that. And a chance to be 4-0 at home for the first time since like the 70s. So a couple things that are lining up for New Mexico to be super hyped about this ball game on Saturday.
Yeah, so like you have a better than expected version of New Mexico. New Mexico was projected to be one of the worst teams in the Mountain West. Right now, they are not. Like they're in the middle, maybe bottom half if you want to be nitpicky about it, but they are not one of the bottom feeders of the conference, at least the way they've played and the way they have their overall record. And if they beat the Aggies, they certainly wouldn't be one of those bottom feeders. They'd be a middling team in the Mountain West. And Utah State, they were a team that was projected to be pretty darn low in the national scale and fairly low in the Mountain West. But what are they? They're, pretty solid, 3-4 against a really tough strength of schedule, and they've picked up a couple of conference wins. Yeah, it's against a couple of the lower teams in the Mountain West with Air Force and San Jose, but still couple of solid wins in the Mountain West. And so you don't have 2 bottom feeders going at it, behind the scrap pile, just being like, all right, we're just a bunch of bottom feeders trying desperately to get a win. You have 2 teams that have legitimate hopes of, bowl eligibility, fringe hopes of a conference title. I mean, it's not likely for either team, but, that's still mathematically possible, at least for Utah State.
Sure.
A little harder for New Mexico with the 2 conference losses already, but still, like, that's something that both teams still kind of have, especially with bowl eligibility. So it's like, yeah, like you're getting a really good version of this game as opposed to like you got Wyoming and Colorado State, which is a big rivalry, but it's 2 of the worst teams in the conference going at each other. You get a decent rivalry game and a rivalry game feel for this between 2 solid bowl caliber teams.
Right, and it's a shame that this isn't the national broadcast because there's a lot of juicy storylines.
Who is on the national broadcast this week? Who did they?
That is a good question.
If I can spell the name of the website I'm trying to go to,
I will have that for you. You've got Boise and Nevada on Friday on CBS Sports Network, San Diego State at Fresno on FS1. And Colorado State at Wyoming on CBS Sports Network.
Okay, I can kind of get that, though.
And so of the 4 games, 3 of them are on national television. The one that's not is Utah State and New Mexico.
See, I feel like they should have just flexed and I guess maybe it's hard to do this because Utah State just played on Friday. Don't want to make them play on Friday twice in a row. Because the return of Bronco Mendenhall to New Mexico was a preseason storyline. That's something you knew was going to happen. Now, San Diego State, Fresno State, that one's interesting because San Diego State wasn't expected to be good preseason. So, was that going to be like a good game? It's going to be good this year.
Yeah.
So they're looking pretty good in retrospect. This is going to be one of the very impactful games in Mountain West play. That's a game that's going to be kind of must-watch television for a lot of Mountain West viewers. And then you got the border war. That's one you don't pass up. That's got a lot more history, and you could also call hate to it.
Yeah,
rivalry hate than Utah State, New Mexico.
2 programs who fired coaches of varying degrees of influence.
Yeah, one firing the offensive coordinator, one firing the head coach. But yeah, it's but I mean, again, preseason when you're making these determinations, it's Colorado State, Wyoming. That's a tough rivalry. They're both projected to be similar, so it's supposed to be a close game, but. Yeah, it's a shame they couldn't get Utah State, New Mexico on national TV. Maybe just because they felt like people wouldn't appreciate, like nationally couldn't appreciate the feelings of this game, especially for New Mexico. And again, Utah State fans really want this game as well. They don't want to lose to New Mexico. So it's basically a pop-up rivalry, essentially, where there's not a whole lot of history to it, but it's going to have a lot of those same rivalry feelings that, and not to quite the same degree, but like there's a similar feeling to it as a Colorado State, Wyoming, as a Utah BYU. Obviously, again, what I'm saying is like not to the same like degree and
not the history there.
Yeah, it doesn't have the history there.
Could have a lot of emotion.
But those same rivalry feelings will be present, if not even though they're not on the same level as long-term historical rivalries. Those feelings exist, and that's what college football is all about. When you can have a game like this, where doesn't matter how well the season's going, doesn't matter in a lot of cases what happens after the season, but you want this game. You want this game more than others. And that's what's going to set this apart for both sides, but more so for New Mexico, obviously.
Yeah, so we've kind of set the stage for like the emotion and the behind the scenes kind of stuff and why this game will be juicy. But what about like what could actually happen on the field? Like we've heard from the coach and the players. We'll start to examine like what do these teams look like and how have they kind of gotten to this point? Because both teams have exact same overall records, both 4-3, different conference records. But as we continue our preview, we'll look at what's happened on the field. What are the coaches saying about New Mexico? What are the players saying about the matchup as well? And we'll continue to discuss it and get your feedback also. I'll have you weigh in. 435-339-0321.
At Mountain Valley Heating and Air Conditioning, now's the time to feel the love and the savings. With current tax credits and government rebates, save up to 40 and 50% on new heating and cooling systems. From residential tune-ups to commercial HVAC projects, Mountain Valley has you covered. Rebates and credits end at the end of this year. Take advantage today. Go to mtnvalleyhvac.com and start saving while you feel the love.
S.C. Needham Jewelers is where Utah gets engaged. Couples throughout the state buy their rings from S.C. Needham Jewelers because of our low prices, extensive ring selection, and extraordinary benefits and services with financing available. Go to scneedham.com to learn more. We have many unique and beautiful engagement rings starting at $500. You'll find affordable engagement rings with our integrity price guarantee. This is why we are where Utah gets engaged. Open Monday through Saturday, 10 to 7. S.C. Needham Jewelers, middle of the block, at the sign of the clock.
Hi, it's Emily, and here at Serenoni, we start with the thread, literally. We knit all of our own fabrics so we can control the softness, the weight, and the quality. So your blanket isn't just soft at first, it stays soft, strong, and beautiful over time. From our softest minky to lush, stretched, cotton muslin, and waffle, we create comfort that holds up from newborn snuggles to movie nights. Established in 2006 right here in Logan, come experience the quality for yourself at our store on 10th West next to iFit. Serenoni, wrapped in comfort, gifted with love.
When grid failures and severe weather cause power outages, your business might take a hit, or at home, you could lose your refrigerated food storage. Generac Standby Power Solutions help ensure an uninterrupted power supply. Generac is the #1 brand of standby generators. Get yours today from Golden Spike Electric, your trusted source for safety and security. Golden Spike Electric, powering your peace of mind. Online at gscgenerators.com or call 257-3016. They also service other models.
They never could play it, but they sure can talk about it. Eric Frandsen and Jason Walker on the Full Court Press.
435-339-0321. That's the number to text in and join the show via the Young Power Sports slogan text line. Have a few people jumping in. 5777 earlier today listening to the podcast saying, I just listened to yesterday's episode, but I'm pretty sure the rules have changed and the portal now opens for teams with coaching changes after new coach is hired. You look into that and see if that's accurate. So we're talking about, coaching firings and players maybe entering the portal mid-season, and they are changing that rule. My only thing is I don't know if it changed like immediately, because that is going to be a new rule whether it's implemented now or for next season. Because, yeah, it's basically the transfer portal will open, but it's either 5 days after the new head coach is hired, or I think there's also a 30 or 35 days after the opening happens so that teams can't cheese it by just not hiring somebody.
Yeah. So players have a 15-day window to enter the portal following a coaching change, which begins 5 days after the new coach is hired. So a new coach is hired. That new coach has 5 days to convince his roster to stay. And after that, there is a 15-day window for players to enter the portal.
Yeah. And
so that conceivably could happen in December for teams that are firing their coaches now and they announce a new hire at the end of the season. There could be a 15-day window for some of these players in December, and then the portal window for everybody else is open in January.
Yeah. So I guess maybe I should double check if that was implemented immediately or if that's a change that's going into effect next season. And again, there was also the caveat of it does open even if you don't hire a head coach, again, there's a window that can still open even if you haven't hired a head coach. Basically as a preventative measure to make sure teams just don't hire a head coach and then don't let their players go in the portal or something like that. Try not to cheese the system. But yeah, it's something like 30 or 40 days after the opening happens. But for most cases, it's going to be that 5 days after the new coach is hired. Mid-season firing is going to be kind of weird anyway. So hopefully answer your question there. A few more texts kind of on the topic. We're talking New Mexico, kind of previewing what this game means, not really getting into the nitty gritty. We'll dive into that and kind of who New Mexico is, what are their strengths, particularly on offense. But 3714 says, Eric said something like, coaches are some of the biggest liars around. Are you insinuating Bronco lied in this situation? Well, it depends on what we're going to classify as a lie, because my understanding is that what Bronco said is I have not been approached or interviewed. And we've had this kind of conversation before because a lot of coaches, when they say, well, we haven't been approached or I haven't talked to so-and-so, my impression is that they are not necessarily lying, but they also kind of are, because they don't take a plane to, wherever they're going to have these hiring conversations and all that, themselves. Coaches have agents, and those agents, when an opening comes up, they'll be reaching out to schools, or, the coach might indicate, hey, maybe look at this job. When a coach gets hired a couple days or the day after a season ends, trust me, the whole hiring process didn't happen, within a couple of days. And I forget what the timeline was for Bronco after New Mexico.
So during his introductory press conference, I asked him specifically about the timeline that led to him choosing to come to Utah State. And because I knew that was a big issue among New Mexico fans, I didn't really care for it. It didn't really matter to me as far as Utah State fans may be concerned. But I knew that was an issue for New Mexico fans. And I had seen the press conference the previous week where he was downplaying that and using those comments. So, and he said that he was focused on the team and trying to get to bowl eligibility, and that's all he was focused on. And when the season was over, he became aware of the position. He had a short amount of time to decide. He basically said within 48 hours between hearing the opportunity and then deciding to move on the opportunity is how quickly he decided to make that move. So the thing that you're right. Technically, he was not lying because Utah State did not directly contact him, but there were conversations with his agent. That's why coaches have agents to handle these kind of discussions. Bronco had to have been somewhat aware that something was going on, or that his name was being linked to this opportunity, because he could easily have said, shut it all down. I'm fully committed. Don't bother me with these discussions. And there could have been some of that to a degree, but to say that he wasn't aware that there could have been an opportunity, that may be stretching it a little bit.
Yeah, and so that's kind of the nuance of these situations is coaches will be technically honest when they say, well, I've not been interviewed. Well, yeah, you've not been interviewed. but Utah State would have been searching for a coach for months, and Bronco Mendenhall, like, did he enter his name for candidacy literally 5 days before he was hired? I doubt that. I'd have serious. Did Bronco make the decision to actually move from New Mexico to Utah State within that 5-day window? I'd believe that. Did he actually finally start giving serious consideration in his own head, using up his own brain space? Did he finally start making those serious thoughts after November 30th? I'd believe that. But as you said, was he completely unaware, completely innocent, not entertaining any discussion, him or his agent, of coming to Utah State before November 30th when they played Hawaii? I wouldn't necessarily believe that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what we know about Bronco is I think he's a pretty straight shooter. I don't think he's too much of a BSer. There are some coaches that it's flowing out of them. Bronco's not really one of those guys. But so I believe that he really was focused on New Mexico and helping them. But to say that he had no knowledge of the Utah State opportunity until his season concluded, that I don't know if I totally believe.
2409 saying, I joined the show late. Where's Bronco has been rumored to be going to? Well, I mean, he came to Utah State. Of course, now the rumor is he's going to go to Oregon State. That's what some people.
His name's been sort of floated, attached there, because he was an assistant there for a little while.
He was a player there.
He played there. Yeah. He was rumored to be a part of the coaching search that he was actively interested in it when Gary Anderson ended up getting that job instead, because the urban legend is that Bronco listed Gary as a reference, and when Oregon State reached out to Gary Anderson about Bronco, Gary pursued it himself and said, well, what if I want the job? But again, that's urban legend. I can't verify that. But so I don't think that Bronco's heading there. In fact, there was some discussion a little bit about that in our press conference this week. It was not really in reference to this new position potentially, but it was kind of connected to what we've been talking about. Him deciding to come here to Logan, to Utah State, and how he feels like he has been received and what the opportunity is for him and his family.
Is this the cut number 18?
Yes.
The first guiding principle in our program is family first, last, and always. And I never imagined I would have a chance at this stage in my coaching career to be back in my home state with all three of my boys, two of which are here at school. Chance to see my mom and my three brothers and to be home. And so that is the answer. There isn't any more to it than that, no matter what other narratives there might be.
Which, yeah, there's a lot of other narratives about why Bronco may have left, but that may very well have been a big part of it. I mean, it's a big reason why Stu stuck around for so long, was family.
Absolutely.
Familiarity with the area and all that, despite other opportunities that could have come up. So let's get into some more text here. We do want to eventually get into preview of the actual game. 8968 though saying, as one who stayed in Albuquerque for a few months, I don't blame Bronco for leaving New Mexico. My dad was actually born in New Mexico. I forget which city though. It was a city in like northern New Mexico. Then he grew up in Monticello in southern Utah.
I've heard both good and bad about Albuquerque. I have heard that there are areas of that town that are really not safe. That it's really not a very good place to be. But I have heard from others that it's a beautiful area and there's a rich tradition and heritage there. So I guess it depends on where you end up planting your flag.
Yeah, it depends on who you ask. And you're planting your flag maybe literally because they're very proud of their state flag.
Yes, they are.
9-1-5 with a few texts coming in saying, I don't know if this was on purpose, but New Mexico fans are even more salty than the Great Salt Lake. It's a combination of more than just Bronco leaves, no pack invite, loss of basketball coach, crappy city to be in land, so on. And then another one, my feeling on this game is that Bronco will get the team ready and they should win. I also think most of New Mexico has so many new players so the fans can be salty, but the players won't feel the same due to never playing with Bronco. And then also asking, is the game on the Mountain West Network? Which I believe it is.
The answer is yes. It'll be on Altitude TV, but it'll also be on the Mountain West Network.
Yeah, which we don't really get, at least that. We don't get Altitude here. Although I think that was also one of
our cable listings.
Yeah, it's like I wasn't sure if we'd get that or yeah, it'll be on the Mountain West Network.
And just be forewarned, it's going to be a very New Mexico broadcast.
Oh, yeah, it will be.
Because they're taking their traditional radio play-by-play guy and having him do the TV broadcast. So Robert Portnoy will be doing the TV play-by-play.
Is it as bad as the Hawaii ones?
I don't know.
Because that's like peak Homer is the Hawaii broadcast.
There was a lot of that. Early on, I thought, these guys, they know their stuff. They're calling a pretty good game. And then it just got into weird. It just drifted way too much.
Yeah, definitely. 6543. So have you heard if any special protection is being available for the coach this weekend? Yeah, I don't think New Mexico fans are that crazy.
No, I don't think it's going to be that bad. They'll throw insults at him, but I don't think they'll actually assault him.
Hopefully the worst thing that gets thrown is a cup of beer, and I hope that doesn't even happen. But if something's going to get thrown, at least hopefully it's soft.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think so, but he may be smart to have an extra person nearby.
Yeah, but that's usually...
But I think he can handle himself.
That's usually like the New Mexico. They're the ones who provide the security detail, or like local cops will be hired out.
Yeah, it's true.
So that's usually on New Mexico to figure out protection for the
State
visiting
police,
team.
highway patrol, whatever.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So we promised we're going to get into the game, but we're actually up against another break. So we will get to that. We'll talk about New Mexico's run game. They got 3 running backs who are all roughly even in carries. New Mexico has an improved run game. I shouldn't say improved because they were pretty good last year, but it hasn't really fallen off much from last year. But so they have a good run game, a good run defense. And so we'll talk about the challenges for Utah State on both sides of the run game. Coming up next here on the Full Court Press.
Old McDarrell has a farm and appliance farm with down home country prices and big city selection. E-I-E-I-O. When you're looking for a friendly spot to drive a little and save a lot, hey, Old McDarrell has a farm and appliance farm. No overhead, but lots of country charm. See Darrell's Appliance in beautiful downtown Benson.
Hi, this is Robbie with LSS Insurance. Medicare changes can be confusing, but they don't have to be. Skip the ads, the junk mail, and the endless phone calls. Come talk to a local licensed pro that knows all the local Medicare possibilities. Let's sit down face-to-face and make sure you have the right plan for 2026. No pressure, no cost, just the help you need from people who live and understand our community. Call 752-9493 today and speak with a licensed agent at LSS Insurance. Get the most out of Medicare. Let us help you.
Addiction is the one thing that everybody knows about, but not many people talk about. If you're finding yourself in a situation where you're struggling with personal addiction, or maybe you love someone who's struggling with addiction right now, our friends at Renaissance Ranch have a place where you can go for healing. And they focus on more than just the addiction. They help your family heal too. Addiction doesn't just impact one person, it impacts everybody it touches. Learn more at renaissanceranch.net. Also, you can visit their location right here in Logan.
This Halloween, the Riverwoods dares you to seize the fright.
Join the Riverwoods and Seize the Night Records for the ultimate Halloween dance party. Live music, a killer costume contest,
and enough thrills to wake the dead.
It all happens Saturday, October 25th from 8 to 11 p.m. at the Riverwoods. Come dressed to distress. Must be 18 or older. For discounted tickets, visit SeizeTheNightRecords.com. That's SeizeTheNightRecords.com. Or you can purchase tickets at the door.
The Full Court Press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Welcome on back to the Full Court Press. Jason Walker here with Eric Frandsen on 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan, streaming online at 1069thefan.com and the 1069 The Fan mobile app. Had a lot of interaction on the text line, 435-339-0321, if you want to join in on the fun via the Young Power Sports of Logan text line. So we've talked a lot about this game, but we've not talked a lot about the teams participating in it, specifically the players, their styles, their strengths, weaknesses, whatnot. When you look at this New Mexico team, what are they going to present on the field as opposed to all the off-the-field drama with the coaches and yada, yada, yada? Well, kind of the number one thing you look at is that this is a pretty solid rushing team, and they're going to emphasize running the ball. They run the ball more than they pass it. They average 35 carries per game and only 30 passes per game. So they average just under 150 rushing yards per game. So this is a team that's going to look to run the ball, and they have 3 running backs that tend to carry the ball. Scottre Humphrey, who actually he came from Montana, didn't he? Either Montana or Montana State. Now, then you have Damon Bankston, who's a second leading rusher, and DJ McKinney. All of them have between 56 and 69 carries, and all of them have between 240 and 339 rushing yards, and they have 11 rushing touchdowns between the 3 of them.
Yeah, so it's not like there's one big star who gets a bunch of yards, and you really got to be mindful and try to focus on him. They will really mix it up, and they'll just go with whoever appears to be playing well. And even then, they continue to mix it up so that whenever a guy comes in, he's fresh and he's ready to go. They don't pick up big chunk yards a lot, though they have had some times where Scottre Humphrey has a 61-yard rush that he was able to rip off. Damon Bankston, a 54-yard rush that he was able to do. So they do have that potential to have explosive running plays, but it is by committee how they do their running attack.
Yeah, so let's first hear from Bronco Mendenhall, talk about the running game in general, and then I did later ask a follow-up about what's it like facing 3 running backs? Is there an advantage there? But here's his first initial thoughts, Mendenhall's thoughts on the New Mexico run game.
I'm not sure if it's usually by committee, but there's an emphasis on running the football, and the running backs are they're quick and they're strong and they run powerfully. They're aggressive, and sometimes when you have players rotating and competing, every run is almost like a defining run to get other touches or to help their team win. And so there's advantages both ways of having a running back, and there's advantages for having multiple running backs, and they're making it work, and it's really effective.
Yeah, and so I kind of keyed in on that last point where it's like there's some advantages to having the 3, some advantages to having 1. So, and I kind of followed up on that point with Mendenhall, and here is his response.
Our execution and our precision and our consistency, and if there's subtle differences or if there's significant differences between the back, then it might change your angles. They might be a little wider, they might be a little more downhill, they might be a little more bounce oriented. But really execution, consistency within our own schemes and strategies is where our focus will be.
Yeah, I guess I should say the question was more like, is it going to matter more about your execution, your what you guys do versus any nuance the 3 running backs may bring? And so his response essentially, as you just heard, was we're more worried about us, even if there are some nuances. So, and I think that was an important point because we can break down the exact differences between these 3 running backs. And there might be a nuance here. One's maybe a bit more of a power runner. Maybe this one's a little bit faster. But I think the biggest thing is just making sure you're doing, Utah State's doing the things they need to do right. Hopefully if they do that, they're not going to have to worry about who's in back there. Because I don't know if there's that much difference between the 3 of them. Because they're all 3 solid runners. One does catch the ball a lot more. Damon Bankston has 14 catches. The other 2 have 11 combined between them. And he's got 200 receiving yards, which is almost double his other 2 fellow running backs. But I don't know if you change your game plan and change your play calls based on which running back is. It's just the fact of the matter is they have 3 good running backs. And so don't be thinking, well, this possession is going to be easy because they have their backup running back. And it's like every single one of them is going to be a threat to run at any single point.
Yeah, really the only thing is just if Bankston's in there, you just have to realize this is a guy who may be available in the screen game.
Yeah, it's kind of like your third down back. Hey, he might go out for a screen or have a draw or something like that.
Right. So You can't lose sight of him, even if it looks like it's not an obvious run play.
Yeah, and Utah State has shown some real weakness in the screen game. Most everybody who's run screens has had success. Texas A&M and Vanderbilt were really the only teams in the first 4 or 5 games that really ran screens, because McNeese didn't do it, UTEP didn't, which is weird because UTEP likes the short pass game. You'd think they would try more screens, but they didn't really. Air Force obviously doesn't really do the screen thing. They might as well just run the ball if they're going to do a screen, which that's pretty much what they do. But yeah, A&M did it, Vanderbilt did it, both to great success. And you'd say, okay, those are great teams. But then Hawaii did it to great success against the Aggies. San Jose started to do pretty well, and then the Aggies actually locked up in the end. There were a couple of Danny Scudero screen passes in clutch situations that Utah State shut down for like one. I think their only tackle for loss was on a screen pass.
Yeah, it was. Yeah,
Danny Scudero going for a 1-yard loss on a screen play, and there was another one where he only went for like 3 or 4 yards, which is a relative success considering some of the other screens were going for 9 or 10 yards. So can New Mexico do something similar there with Bankston? We'll see, but that's one of the areas that Utah State needs to shore up, is their screen pass defense.
Right, yeah, because it's there's a threat there with Bankston, 14 receptions for 200 yards. He turned one of those into a 55-yard reception. He's found pay dirt before in the passing game. So he's a versatile back that Utah State has to be aware of.
Yeah, and those could be the most dangerous ones, is the ones who are a threat both to run, if they're good runners, and he's a guy he's leading the team in 5.6 yards per carry. And he's showing the ability to be a good running back out of the backfield, create explosive plays there. So a couple different ways to beat the Aggies to the run, but one of the things that's interesting is that even with these running backs, they still only average as a team 4.2 yards per rush, which is like barely in kind of the positive.
Yeah, they're in the bottom 4 in the Mountain West.
Yeah,
for a rushing average per game, but also in they're pretty low as far as their average per attempt. So it's an interesting mix. Like they are a balanced offense in passing and running the ball. But their total yards per game sometimes can be on the low side.
Yeah, so it's been kind of feast or famine when you look at some of these games, because they have 3 games under 100 yards rushing, and they have 3 games with more than 210 yards rushing. Because they had 50 rushing yards at Michigan, 76 at San Jose, 49 at Boise State. Sensing a theme. On the road, they're struggling. Of course, at UCLA, they had a season high 298, but it was also UCLA. Then 210 or 216 at Idaho State, and then last week 210 rushing yards against Nevada. So again, it's feast or famine. The only middling one was New Mexico State, where they had 132.
Yeah, and last week with Nevada, it was a quarterback who led the team in rushing yards. So it's Lane has that ability to get out and scramble. He's not really known as a big scrambling quarterback. He doesn't have a ton of rushing yards on the season.
I think that was like the only game where he was actually scrambling a ton, if I remember right.
Yeah, you look at his numbers on the season, and
yeah,
not a lot there. I mean,
he had 71 yards against Nevada. I think if I'm doing the math right, he had 2 net yards before last week.
Yes.
He had 3 games where he had negative rushing yards, but that's because sacks.
Yeah. So yeah, not really known to be a scrambling QB, though that did work for him.
Yeah, but if you leave him open, these guys are athletic enough. It's like Patrick Mahomes. Is he like super athletic? No, but you leave him open, he's good enough. He'll go out there and get some yards. So I don't know if Utah State will. Well, I think the way that New Mexico doesn't pass nearly as much, they're not going to pull the San Jose game plan, but. You can't just completely leave him alone.
No.
You got to sort of account for him at times. We got to go ahead and take a quick break. When we come back, we'll have the stat that blew our mind and our full court press players of the week.
This is Brent Wallace with Cache Valley Bank, and we understand that concerns about fraud can weigh heavily on you. Your peace of mind is important to us. That's why we're committed to looking out for you and your family. Our team keeps a vigilant eye on your account, and if you ever have concerns or need support, we're just a call or visit away. Whether you need advice or just someone to talk to, our friendly staff is ready to help. We're more than just a bank. We're your neighbors, and we care about your security. Visit your local branch today. Cache Valley Bank, member FDIC.
Express Tire, tires for less.
Safety and comfort on the road are Express Tire's top priority. As a Point S team member, count on peace of mind with an inclusive warranty that includes nationwide protection. Any brand, any size, better pricing. No appointment necessary on the highway at 3200 North Main.
Express Tire, tires for less.
Hey, this is Jarek with Jarek's Fine Jewelry. This October marks our 17th year anniversary.
So to celebrate, we want to treat you to an anniversary date. Make it a date night on us. Come engagement ring or anniversary ring shopping at Jarek's Fine Jewelry. We have thousands of designs to choose from, including the newest custom designs. With no strings attached and no purchase necessary,
We will buy you dinner at Sweeto Burrito the entire month of October. Come engagement ring or anniversary ring shopping, and date night is on us. Make it special, make it Jarek's.
This is Ryan at My Mattress. A few years ago, I saw this sign hanging in a gas station. It said price, quality, service. Pick 2 out of the 3. Now, it's funny, and I did laugh, but at My Mattress, we don't even want to do business unless we can do all 3. Price, quality, and service. We have a 90-day sleep guarantee, 90-day price guarantee, and we will answer the phone if you have a warranty concern. At My Mattress, we deliver, we have financing, we strive to be price, quality, and service every day. Isn't it time to sleep exceptionally? Only at My Mattress.
The Aggies, the Jazz, the high schools, the full court press on Sports Talk Radio, 106.9 FM, 1390 AM. The Fan.
Keep your car running at its best with help from Napa Auto Parts. Need a new wiper or battery? Napa has the best brands that can even help you with installation right on the spot at the store. Get a Napa Legend or Napa AAA battery that can even test your current battery to make sure it actually needs to be replaced. Make sure you're checking on that as winter quickly approaches. And if you need a local mechanic you can trust, visit a locally owned Napa Auto Care Center. Find one at napaonline.com or talk to them at any one of the Preston Province locally owned Napa Auto Parts locations. Eric, we've only got a few minutes, but let's get to a couple things. The stat that blew our mind and our full court press players of the week. Let's start with the stat that blew your mind, Eric.
This is, I feel bad sharing this, but this will be the 48th World Series since the Mariners began play back in 1977. They haven't played in a single World Series. Now here's the stat. No other Major League Baseball, NBA, NFL, NHL franchise all time has gone that long to begin the franchise's history without reaching the championship round while remaining in the same city.
That's pretty rough. Basically, and that last caveat there is to include the Browns, right?
Yes. While remaining in the same city.
Yeah, that's a rough one. So I had a pretty obvious one, and I've kind of tacked on another one. It was one I shared on Friday. Anthony Garcia becoming the first Utah State football player to have a receiving, passing, and rushing touchdown within the same season since 1976. There's also a host of stats from the Denver Broncos win over the New York Giants.
That game was drunk. The last quarter of that was bonkers.
Because I think there was one where they're the only team to score 33 points in the fourth quarter after being shut out. The 33 fourth quarter points was nearly a record. It was only behind a 34-point quarter by, I think, the Bears way back in 2007. But there's also this one where prior to that game, NFL teams were 0-1,602. They had lost 1,602 teams in the NFL, when they were trailing by at least 18 points in the final 6 minutes of the fourth quarter. The Broncos became the first team in 1,603 tries to win a game when trailing by at least 18 points in the fourth quarter. They won that one 33-32.
Yeah, that game was just nuts.
And the Giants cut their kicker. who missed a couple extra points.
You could have helped them.
Yeah, they needed it. They would have won either. All right, so let's go to our full court press players of the week. Eric, who you got?
I'm going to give a shout out to Lily Hunsaker for Ridgeline High School. 3 goals. She had a hat trick for the Riverhawks in their 5-3 win over Park City in the 4A girls soccer semifinals.
All right, then I'm going to go with the easy one, Bryson Barnes, or maybe the obvious one. Bryson Barnes, career high 326 passing yards, and of course, becoming a father.
That's a big deal.
A father of 2, his new son and the Spartans. As they might say.
Yes.
So, there you go. That's our full court press players of the week. A couple of others that we probably could have chosen. A lot of great performances across Aggie Nation. Volleyball absolutely kicking tail right now.
Oh, yes.
I think they're 8 or are they up to 9? I think it's still 8.
Yeah, I mean, you could also...
Or now I can't remember. I tweeted out last night, and I can't even remember still.
You look back just over the weekend, what happened over the last week. I mean, Shohei Ohtani had perhaps one of the greatest playoff performances ever.
That's true.
So, yeah, we've had some pretty impressive performances here recently.
Yeah, definitely pretty good performances. That's going to do it for us in the first hour. Stick around. We got Mountain West Power Rankings and Utah State basketball.
I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise. There's no shortage of marquee openings in college football. Florida, Oklahoma State, and of course Penn State. There are jobs that come with a massive paycheck, but high expectations. For all their allure, there's a lesson that should be echoed through the coaching fraternity. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. Just ask Brian Kelly. He left Notre Dame after a decade of sustained excellence, a national title appearance, and 7 double-digit win seasons. Since arriving at LSU, his Tigers have been fine but not fantastic. No playoff berths, a 5-9 record against ranked opponents. Lincoln Riley's move from Oklahoma to USC told a similar story. 3 12-win seasons in Norman, a Cotton Bowl title, and playoff contention that gave way to mediocrity in Los Angeles. No double-digit win season since 2022. As coaches like Lane Kiffin and Marcus Freeman inevitably get those phone calls this season, they would be wise to remember all of this. I'm Dan Patrick, and this is Above the Noise.